We're bombarded by alarming headlines, conflict, military drills, threats, but these stories only scratch the surface. The world isn't chaos. It's a chessboard. Every move by nations like Iran and Russia is calculated, strategic, and part of a long game. Real power plays happen far from the cameras. Secret deals, economic leverage, and technological warfare. To understand global events, we must look past the noise and uncover the hidden strategies shaping our future. This journey means questioning official narratives and seeking the real motives behind the headlines. Let's strip away the veneer and reveal the true engine rooms of global power. Headlines are crafted to provoke, not to explain. They keep us fixated on crises, missing the bigger picture. We see Iran's nuclear threats and Russia's military moves, but miss the years of planning and the deeper strategies at play. The real story isn't in the explosions. It's in the groundwork laid long before. Iran's digital defenses and Russia's global resource grabs are rarely reported, yet they're crucial. These moves aren't random. They're part of a sophisticated doctrine for survival and dominance. To truly understand, we must look beyond the breaking news and connect the hidden dots. Iran and Russia aren't just reacting. They're building a new world order. Iran uses asymmetric tactics and digital fortresses to survive. Russia leverages energy and shadow armies to expand influence. Their goal? Dismantle Western dominance and create a multipolar world where they set the rules. These aren't acts of chaos, but calculated construction, alliances, alternative systems, and new power structures. Understanding their vision is key to decoding their every move. This is the architecture of a new global reality, built in the shadows. The real power shifts happen off-stage through secret deals, shifting alliances and pragmatic partnerships. Iran, Russia, and China form a web of cooperation, trading technology, resources, and strategic support. North Korea, India, Turkey, and Brazil maneuver for advantage, refusing to pick sides in a binary world. Blocs like BRICS expand, creating alternatives to Western-led systems and trading in local currencies. These moves quietly reshape the global order, far from the headlines. The future is being built in the shadows, one alliance at a time. The truth of global power lies in the shadows, not the spotlight. To understand the world, we must dig deeper, beyond headlines, into secret strategies and hidden alliances. Iran and Russia's ambitions are just the start. Tectonic shifts are redrawing the geopolitical map. New blocs, new loyalties, and a digital battlefield for your mind are emerging. Disinformation, AI, and psychological warfare are the new front lines. Join us as we expose the hidden forces shaping today's headlines and tomorrow's world. When we think of national power, our minds often gravitate toward conventional metrics: the number of aircraft carriers, the size of the economy, the sophistication of a nation's air force. By these standards, Iran appears to be significantly outmatched, particularly by the United States and Israel. This apparent imbalance has led many observers to underestimate Iran's strategic capabilities, viewing its defiant posture as mere bluster. However, this perspective fails to grasp the fundamental principle that guides Iran's every move on the world stage: the doctrine of asymmetric power. This is not a strategy of weakness. It is a highly calculated and sophisticated approach designed to turn its perceived disadvantages into potent strengths, allowing it to compete with and deter far more powerful foes. This doctrine is born from decades of isolation, sanctions, and existential threats. Since the 1979 revolution, Iran has understood that it cannot win a conventional head-to-head conflict with a superpower. Instead of trying to match its rivals tank for tank or ship for ship, it has cultivated a different kind of strength. Asymmetric warfare is the art of avoiding an enemy's strengths while exploiting their vulnerabilities. It involves using unconventional tactics, leveraging geography, and weaponizing ideology to create a battlefield where the traditional rules of engagement no longer apply. For Iran, this means investing in capabilities that are difficult to counter, such as cyber warfare, drone swarms, fast-attack naval craft, and a sprawling network of proxy militias across the Middle East. The core of this strategy is to make the cost of any direct military action against Iran prohibitively high. It is a doctrine of deterrence built not on the promise of winning a war, but on the certainty of inflicting unbearable pain on any aggressor. Every public statement, every military drill, and every covert operation is part of this elaborate psychological game. Iran telegraphs its ability to disrupt global oil supplies, to launch missile barrages from hidden locations, and to activate its allies across the region, creating a multi-front crisis that no single power could easily manage. This approach ensures that potential adversaries must think twice, weighing the potential for a swift victory against the risk of becoming entangled in a long, bloody, and economically ruinous conflict. This playbook is not static, it is constantly evolving. Iran is a learning state, adapting its asymmetric tactics to new technologies and changing geopolitical landscapes. It has become a pioneer in the use of armed drones, providing a low-cost, high-impact weapon that has altered the balance of power in regional conflicts from Yemen to Iraq. It has cultivated a deep understanding of its adversaries' political and social vulnerabilities, developing disinformation campaigns designed to sow discord and undermine public will. To understand Iran, one must look beyond the official military parades and see the nation as a grandmaster of this asymmetric chessboard, where every piece, no matter how small, is deployed for maximum strategic effect. While the world's attention is fixated on Iran's nuclear ambitions and its military posturing in the Persian Gulf, a far more subtle and potentially more significant project has been steadily advancing within its borders. This is the creation of the National Information Network, often described as an intranet for Iran. This is not merely a system for enhancing censorship or blocking access to Western social media platforms, though it certainly serves that purpose. The National Information Network is a far more ambitious undertaking, a strategic initiative to build a parallel digital ecosystem, a digital fortress designed to insulate Iran from the global internet, protect it from foreign cyber attacks, and provide the regime with an unprecedented tool of control and offensive capability. The project was conceived in the aftermath of the 2009 Green Movement protests, when Western social media platforms were used to organize demonstrations and disseminate information that challenged the government's authority. It was further accelerated by the Stuxnet virus, a sophisticated cyber weapon believed to be a joint United States and Israeli creation which sabotaged centrifuges at Iran's Natanz uranium enrichment facility. These events taught Tehran two critical lessons. The global internet was a powerful tool for fomenting domestic dissent, and Iran's critical infrastructure was dangerously vulnerable to digital attack from its enemies. The National Information Network is the regime's comprehensive answer to both of these threats, a monumental effort to achieve digital sovereignty. The ultimate goal of the National Information Network is to create a self-sufficient digital space. This involves developing domestic versions of popular global services, search engines, email clients, social media apps, and video platforms, all hosted on servers within Iran and operating under the government's direct control. By encouraging or compelling citizens and businesses to use these local alternatives, the state can monitor, filter, and manipulate the flow of all information. In a time of crisis, the government could sever the country's connection to the global internet entirely, a digital iron curtain, while ensuring that essential domestic services like banking, utilities, and government functions continue to operate without interruption on the National Information Network. This capability is a powerful weapon against both internal unrest and external pressure. Beyond its defensive applications, the National Information Network is also a platform for projecting power. By creating a centralized and controlled network, Iran's cyber warfare units gain a secure launchpad for their own offensive operations. They can probe and attack their adversaries' networks from a protected domestic environment, making attribution and retaliation more difficult. The system allows them to test and refine their cyber weapons in a contained space before deploying them globally. The National Information Network is therefore a dual-use technology of immense strategic importance. It is a shield that protects the regime from digital threats, and a sword that allows it to engage in the growing domain of information and cyber warfare on its own terms, a cornerstone of its asymmetric playbook. Few geographical locations on Earth hold as much strategic importance as the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow waterway, at one point only 21 miles wide, is the jugular vein of the global energy market. Through this choke point flows roughly 1/5 of the world's total oil consumption, and a significant portion of its liquefied natural gas. For Iran, which borders the strait along its northern coast, this geography is not a vulnerability but its single greatest strategic asset. The nation's leaders have repeatedly threatened to close this vital artery in response to military threats or crippling economic sanctions. While many dismiss these threats as saber-rattling, behind the scenes, Iran has spent decades meticulously developing the capability to make good on its promise, aiming for nothing less than choke point supremacy. Iran's strategy for controlling the Strait of Hormuz is, honestly, a masterclass in its doctrine of asymmetric warfare. It knows it cannot compete with the US Navy's carrier strike groups in a conventional naval battle. Therefore, it has not tried to. Instead, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy has built a force perfectly tailored to the Strait's unique environment. This force is composed of hundreds of small, fast, and heavily armed speedboats. These vessels, often operating in swarms, are designed to overwhelm the defenses of larger, more cumbersome warships through sheer numbers and coordinated, high-speed attacks. They are difficult to track on radar and can hide among the thousands of civilian vessels that transit the strait daily, emerging suddenly to strike with anti-ship missiles, torpedoes, and rocket-propelled grenades. Beyond its swarm tactics, Iran has layered its defenses of the strait with a formidable array of other asymmetric weapons. It has amassed a vast arsenal of mobile, land-based anti-ship cruise missiles, hidden in coastal caves and camouflaged positions, capable of striking any vessel within the waterway. Furthermore, Iran has developed a sophisticated naval mine-laying capability. It possesses thousands of mines, from simple contact mines to more advanced smart mines, which can be deployed rapidly by submarines, aircraft, and even disguised civilian ships. The mere suspicion that the strait has been mined could be enough to halt all maritime traffic, sending global oil prices soaring and causing catastrophic disruption to the world economy without a single shot being fired. This multi-layered strategy is complemented by a growing fleet of unmanned systems. Iran has invested heavily in developing both aerial and naval drones. Unmanned aerial vehicles can be used for surveillance, reconnaissance, and kamikaze attacks on ships, while unmanned surface and underwater vessels can be deployed for missions too dangerous for manned crews, such as covert mine-laying or suicide attacks. This combination of speedboats, missiles, mines, and drones creates a dense, overlapping web of threats that would make any military operation to reopen the strait an incredibly complex and perilous undertaking. Iran's goal is not necessarily to close the strait permanently, but to possess the credible ability to do so, giving it a powerful deterrent and an ultimate trump card in any negotiation or confrontation. The international community's focus on Iran's nuclear program has often centered on declared facilities like Natanz and Arak, sites that are subject to inspections and constant satellite surveillance. However, the most critical element of Iran's long-term nuclear strategy may lie hidden from view, buried deep beneath the earth. Aware that its known facilities are vulnerable to airstrikes, particularly from advanced bunker-busting munitions, Iran has embarked on a massive and clandestine construction campaign. It is carving out a new generation of nuclear sanctuaries deep inside its rugged mountain ranges, creating facilities designed to be virtually invulnerable to military attack. This underground expansion represents a determined effort to secure its nuclear future, placing its most sensitive assets beyond the reach of its enemies. One of the most prominent examples of this strategy is the Fordow Fuel Enrichment Plant. Built secretly inside a mountain near the city of Qom, its existence was only revealed to the world in 2009. The facility is buried under approximately 300 feet of rock and soil, a depth that challenges even the most powerful penetrating bombs. While the 2015 nuclear deal placed restrictions on the activities at Fordow, the facility itself remains a potent symbol of Iran's strategic foresight and its commitment to survivability. It served as a blueprint for an even more ambitious project now underway near its primary enrichment site at Natanz, where satellite imagery has revealed extensive tunneling into a nearby mountain. This new facility at Natanz is believed to be under construction at an even greater depth than Fordow, potentially rendering it immune to any existing conventional weapon in the US or Israeli arsenals. The purpose of these mountain sanctuaries is twofold. First, they provide ultimate security for the most crucial parts of the nuclear fuel cycle, such as advanced centrifuge assembly and uranium enrichment. By moving these activities underground, Iran ensures that even a massive decapitation strike on its known nuclear sites would not destroy its capability to reconstitute the program. This resilience fundamentally alters the strategic calculus for any nation considering military action, as a successful strike becomes nearly impossible to guarantee. Second, these hidden facilities provide Iran with critical strategic ambiguity. The secrecy and uncertainty surrounding the purpose and extent of these underground sites create a persistent headache for foreign intelligence agencies. It allows Iran to potentially conduct undeclared nuclear work, advancing its program in ways that are difficult to detect and verify. This hidden infrastructure is the ultimate insurance policy for the regime. It ensures the continuity of its nuclear knowledge and capabilities, providing a powerful deterrent and a permanent source of leverage in its dealings with the rest of the world. It is a testament to Iran's long-term planning and its patient, methodical pursuit of what it considers to be its strategic imperatives. Iran's military power cannot be measured solely by the soldiers within its own borders, or the weapons in its official arsenal. One of the most effective and defining elements of its asymmetric playbook is its cultivation of a vast and loyal network of proxy forces and political allies across the Middle East. This network, often referred to as the Axis of Resistance, extends from Hezbollah in Lebanon and Syria, to Shia militias in Iraq, to the Houthis in Yemen, and to Palestinian groups in Gaza. This is not a collection of disparate, independent actors. It is a coherent and centrally directed web of influence. It allows Iran to project power far beyond its own territory, challenge its regional rivals like Saudi Arabia and Israel, and bog down its adversaries in costly conflicts, all while maintaining plausible deniability. The support Iran provides to these groups is comprehensive and multifaceted. It includes funding, advanced weaponry, tactical training, and strategic guidance. For example, Iran has supplied Hezbollah with a massive arsenal of rockets and precision-guided missiles capable of striking anywhere in Israel, creating a powerful second front in any potential conflict. In Yemen, it has provided the Houthis with the ballistic missile and drone technology they have used to attack targets deep inside Saudi Arabia and the UAE, and to disrupt shipping in the Red Sea. In Iraq, its backing of various popular mobilization forces gives it significant political and military leverage, allowing it to shape the country's internal affairs and threaten U.S. forces stationed there. This proxy strategy offers Iran numerous strategic advantages. Primarily, it allows Tehran to engage in war by other means. It can confront its enemies indirectly, bleeding them of resources and political will without risking a direct conventional war that it would likely lose. When a Houthi missile strikes a Saudi oil facility, or a militia in Iraq targets a U.S. base, the immediate focus is on the group that launched the attack, allowing Iran to operate in the shadows. This creates a strategic buffer, raising the threshold for direct retaliation against Iran itself. It is a cost-effective way to wage a long-term, low-intensity conflict that wears down its far wealthier and more technologically advanced adversaries over time. Furthermore, this network serves as a powerful deterrent. Iran has made it clear that any attack on its soil would trigger a region-wide response from its allies. An Israeli or American airstrike on Iran's nuclear facilities could unleash a torrent of rockets from Hezbollah in the north, missile attacks from Yemen in the south, and insurgent campaigns against U.S. interests in Iraq. This threat of a multi-front regional conflagration forces any potential aggressor to contemplate a far wider and more devastating war than they might have intended. The proxy network, therefore, is not just an offensive tool, it is the linchpin of Iran's defensive strategy, a web of tripwires designed to ensure that any war against Iran is a war against the entire region. In the fast-paced world of 24-hour news cycles and quarterly reports, Iran operates on a different timeline. Its strategic thinking is not measured in months or years, but in decades. The ultimate objective guiding its secret playbook, from its digital fortress and its choke point strategy to its mountain sanctuaries and proxy network, is not conquest or global domination but something more fundamental: survival. For the clerical regime that has ruled since 1979, the paramount goal is its own preservation and the endurance of its revolutionary ideals in the face of immense internal and external pressure. In this long game, victory is not defined by a decisive battle, but by the simple act of outlasting its enemies. This philosophy of strategic patience is deeply ingrained in the nation's political and military culture. Iran has endured more than 4 decades of crippling economic sanctions, political isolation, covert operations, and the constant threat of military invasion. These experiences have forged a regime that is resilient, adaptable, and deeply suspicious of the outside world. It views international relations not as a cooperative enterprise but as a relentless struggle for existence. Every policy is therefore evaluated against a single criterion: does it enhance the regime's long-term survivability? This perspective explains its willingness to absorb short-term pain, such as the economic hardship caused by sanctions, in pursuit of long-term strategic gains, like a self-sufficient nuclear program. Iran's secret playbook is the practical application of this philosophy. Each element is designed to increase the cost and complexity for its adversaries while buying the regime more time. The National Information Network is built to withstand a digital siege. The layered defenses in the Strait of Hormuz are designed to deter a naval blockade. The underground nuclear facilities are constructed to survive an aerial bombardment. The proxy network is cultivated to bleed enemies in peripheral conflicts, keeping the war far from Iran's own heartland. Together, these strategies create a formidable defensive posture, a fortress with many walls, designed to wear down the will of any aggressor and ensure that the cost of toppling the regime is simply too high to contemplate. Ultimately, Iran is playing for a different kind of victory. It is betting that the political will of its democratic adversaries will eventually wane, that new global alliances will shift the balance of power in its favor, and that its own population, through a combination of coercion and nationalist pride, will endure the hardships. It is a high-stakes gamble, but one that has allowed the regime to survive and even expand its influence against all odds. Understanding this focus on the long game is essential to decoding Iran's actions. It is not always seeking immediate confrontation, rather it is methodically building a position of strength from which it can ensure its survival for generations to come, believing that in the grand sweep of history, endurance is the ultimate triumph. To understand Russia's actions on the global stage today, one must first look back into the echoes of its past. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 was not just a political event, it was a deep collective trauma for the Russian psyche. A nation that once stood as one of two global superpowers, commanding a vast empire and a potent ideology, found itself diminished, economically broken, and strategically vulnerable. In the eyes of many Russians, and particularly in the worldview of its current leadership, the years that followed were a period of national humiliation, a time when the West dictated terms, and Russia was forced to accept a secondary role. This history is not just a memory, it is a ghost that haunts the Kremlin, a powerful force driving a relentless ambition to restore Russia to what its leaders see as its rightful place in the world. This ambition is far more than simple nostalgia. It is a calculated, long-term strategic project to reverse the verdict of the Cold War. The goal is to rebuild Russia not as a mirror of the Soviet Union, but as a modern, formidable, and sovereign great power, capable of projecting its influence across the globe and commanding the respect and fear of its rivals. Every major policy decision, from domestic political consolidation to foreign military intervention, is a carefully placed stone in the reconstruction of this superpower dream. This is not the impulsive lashing out of a declining power as it is often portrayed. It is the methodical, patient, and often ruthless execution of a grand strategy to reclaim its status on the world stage, a strategy that plays out on multiple fronts simultaneously. The current conflict in Ukraine, while dominating the headlines, is just one theater in this much larger global game. It is the most overt and violent manifestation of Russia's refusal to accept a post-Cold War order dominated by the United States and NATO. From the Kremlin's perspective, the expansion of the Western alliance eastward was an existential threat, a tightening of a strategic noose around its borders. The actions in Ukraine are seen, therefore, not as an unprovoked act of imperial conquest, but as a desperate and necessary pushback, a violent reassertion of its sphere of influence and a clear signal to the world that Russia will no longer play by rules it perceives as rigged against it. It is a brutal but central piece of the puzzle in Russia's quest for resurgence. This revivalist project is built on a foundation of restored national pride and a powerful narrative of historical grievance. The leadership has skillfully cultivated an identity for Russia as a unique civilization state, distinct from the West, with its own traditional values and historical destiny. This ideology serves to unify the population, justify sacrifices, and legitimize an assertive foreign policy. It paints Russia as a besieged fortress, a defender of sovereignty and tradition against a decadent and aggressive West. Understanding this deep-seated drive, this ghost of empire, is the essential first step to deciphering Russia's global game. It is a game not just for territory or resources, but for history itself, for the very soul of a nation determined to be a superpower once more. For decades, Russia's most potent weapon has not been its nuclear arsenal or its tank divisions, but its immense reserves of natural resources. It has masterfully wielded its control over the flow of energy as a primary tool of statecraft. turning pipelines and tankers into instruments of geopolitical leverage. For years, Europe built its industrial and domestic comfort upon a foundation of cheap and plentiful Russian natural gas. This created a deep, structural dependency, a vulnerability that Moscow was always willing to exploit. It could reward friendly governments with discounted prices and punish defiant ones by threatening to, quite literally, turn off the heat in the middle of winter. This energy dominance was a cornerstone of Russia's power, allowing it to sow division within NATO and the European Union. The mysterious sabotage of the Nord Stream pipelines in the Baltic Sea marked a dramatic turning point in this energy war. While the West and Russia traded accusations, the explosions sent a chilling message across the continent. Critical undersea infrastructure was shockingly vulnerable. The incident, regardless of who was responsible, shattered the illusion of secure energy supplies and forced a panicked and costly energy transition in Europe. But Russia's energy game extends beyond natural gas. It is also a global agricultural superpower, one of the world's largest exporters of wheat. In a world facing growing food insecurity, Russia's control over a significant portion of the global grain supply gives it another powerful lever of influence, particularly over developing nations in Africa and the Middle East. This gas and grain gambit allows Russia to wage a multi-front economic war. By threatening to withhold grain exports or block Ukrainian shipments from the Black Sea, it can create price shocks and food shortages that destabilize governments and create humanitarian crises far from the battlefields of Eastern Europe. This pressure can be used to coerce neutrality, to extract political concessions, or simply to demonstrate the global consequences of confronting Moscow. It is a powerful tool for building alliances in the global south, where many nations are more concerned with food prices than with the territorial integrity of a distant European country. Russia positions itself as a vital partner for survival, contrasting with the Western sanctions it claims are the true cause of global economic hardship. This strategy reveals a key aspect of Russia's global game: the exploitation of global interdependencies. Russia understands that in a deeply connected world, disruptions in one area can have cascading effects everywhere else. It has weaponized the very systems of global trade and supply that define the modern era. While Europe has made significant strides in weaning itself off Russian gas, the game is far from over. Russia is actively redirecting its energy flows eastward to new markets in China and India, forging new dependencies and building an economic bloc immune to Western pressure. The control of gas and grain remains a central pillar of its strategy to endure sanctions and project power in its long-term struggle with the West. While Russia's conventional military is tied up in a grinding war in Ukraine, another, much more shadowy arm of its power is quietly extending its reach across the globe. This is the world of private military contractors, or PMCs, with the Wagner Group being the most notorious among them. Even though the Kremlin officially denies that Wagner is a state entity, in practice, it has operated as a de facto tool of Russian foreign policy, a deniable force, able to project power, secure resources, and prop up friendly regimes without the political risks of an official military deployment. This shadow army gives Russia the ability to engage in conflicts and secure its interests under a veil of ambiguity, creating realities on the ground while keeping its distance from the consequences. The main theater for these operations has been Africa. In countries such as Mali, the Central African Republic, Sudan, and Libya, Wagner mercenaries have become a pivotal force. They're not just soldiers for hire. Instead, they provide embattled leaders with a comprehensive regime survival package. That means everything from elite security details for presidents, to training local armies, running counterinsurgency operations, and even orchestrating sophisticated disinformation campaigns aimed at boosting the regime's popularity and vilifying its opponents, especially former colonial powers like France. In return for this security, Wagner, and by extension Russia, gains unprecedented access to Africa's immense natural wealth. Payment for Wagner's services often comes not in cash, but in lucrative mining concessions. In the Central African Republic, companies linked to Wagner have secured control over gold and diamond mines. In Sudan, they've been deeply involved in gold smuggling, providing a vital source of revenue that sidesteps international sanctions. This approach, in effect, kills two birds with one stone. It funds the mercenary operations, making them self-sustaining, and it channels vast quantities of precious minerals and rare earth elements back to Russia. These resources are absolutely critical for fueling Russia's war machine and stabilizing its economy in the face of Western pressure. The use of this shadow army is a textbook example of Russian hybrid warfare. It destabilizes regions, displaces Western influence, and establishes a Russian foothold in strategically vital areas, all at minimal official cost. Even after the dramatic mutiny and subsequent death of Wagner's leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin, the model continues. The structure is now being absorbed and rebranded under the direct control of Russian military intelligence, or the GRU, ensuring its continued role as a tool of the state. This really highlights just how valuable these deniable assets are in Russia's global strategy, allowing it to build a network of dependent states and secure the resources it needs to sustain a long-term confrontation with the West.